Pro-Chancellor, Deputy and Pro-Vice-Chancellors, colleagues, family and friends, graduands. A cold, bleak, wartime winter. Snow covers the ground for 3 months. Invalid out following injuries sustained in Burma, David Herbert Davis has rented an idyllic cottage tucked under Mulvamau as a home for his new wife, Joyce. 9 months later, the story of Rhiannon Evans, begins. Idyllic though Joyce Davis's beloved Clwydian hills are, the remoteness, the isolation, sat uneasily with a couple married in Calcutta and a woman brought up in Australia by orphaned Welsh-speaking parents, her father a Presbyterian minister who had spent the years of the war as a Queen Alexandra nurse in India and Egypt, and on board ship, circumnavigating the Indian Ocean, repairing the sick, the comforting the dying. And the baby Rhiannon moved south. But only to the south of Wales. Rhiannon's father was a journalist, an actor, a writer, a producer, a director. To many, he was drama in Wales. He was a close friend of Dylan Thomas and of Caitlin, and one of the chief mourners at the Welsh Baird's funeral. He was the mentor to Sian Phillips and a close friend of her husband, Peter O'Toole. Rhiannon had an unusual childhood, moving between Cardiff and Swansea, rarely holidaying, but, for example, spending a summer holiday living with the soon-to-be Lawrence of Arabia and the Royal Shakespeare Company's Shylock in Stratford-on-Avon as a teenager. So home was a ferment, a normal to Rhiannon, but a different world to most of us. Actors and directors, Richard Burton, for example, gathered, stayed, and moved on. Ideas were tossed around, argued, and augmented. Rebellion for a 50s girl, Philip Larkin hadn't invented 1962, was reading the wrong books, mixing with the wrong girls, and Rhiannon did both. Oxbridge beckoned, but the dreaming spires preferred Latin to Welsh as a prerequisite language for a literature scholar. And Rhiannon had also been fascinated by history, and in particular the way in which Wales was represented in Anglo-Saxon tomes. She was also an advocate for change and development, not for being hidebound by tradition and hierarchy. A new university was emerging on the south coast, with dynamic leadership under scholars like Asa Briggs. The tutorial learning style was Oxford, but the university was Sussex, where Helena Normanton, alongside Rose Helbrun, the first female King's Counsel and a graduate at Edge Hill, was a foundation governor. Rhiannon's interest was in modern European minds, in thinkers who were challenging that status quo. So rebellion was never very far away. Getting married to Paul Evans, later an acclaimed British revival poet prior to his tragic death in a climbing accident on Snowdon, while she was at university, was an act of rebellion, as was, a year later, sitting her finals 6 months pregnant with Catherine. A doctorate for Paul and a flat in Paddington, with Rhiannon teaching half-time in a Pimlico primary school, followed alongside offers of jobs with Penguin and an invitation to follow her father into the BBC. Instead, Rhiannon opted for Dark Satanic Mills, a master's degree on William Blake, albeit back on the south coast, but not before another brush with fame. In that London bedsit, music and the smell of various substances wafted down from the flat above, where the band Procol Harum lived and practiced that iconic song of the late 1960s, A Whiter Shade of Pale. And Rhiannon, their landlady, was a cover girl, featuring on the front page of Honey as a young mum. Back in Brighton, with a school-aged first daughter, a baby, Lucy, and a marriage coming to an end, Rhiannon decided to set up her own free school, though it wasn't the free school in current ministers' minds. Teaching and a programme director role at Worthing Art College, designing courses in theatre, in opera, in set design and in film, and also educating the girls from Rodine School followed. The free school survived for 2 years a mix of idealists, incredibly bright children, refuseniks, and those who turned up occasionally, and it simply could not last. It was exhausting. In hindsight, a madness, according to Rhiannon, but another example of 60s idealism in both society and in her life. And those refuseniks and the excluded engaged her alongside the writings of Raymond Williams, Richard Hoggart, and the founder of the adult literary movement, Paulo Freire. In a career driven by her ideology and value system, she joined Alan Tuckett at the Friends Centre, the forerunner of NIACE, the National Institute for Adult and Continuing Education. As a single mum, a home and a mortgage was only a dream, save for some sleight of hand by a referee. But the uncertainty continued. Within a year, a local Conservative MP unsuccessfully sought to have the centre closed, claiming Marxist propaganda, and Rhiannon's job and her newly acquired mortgage were under dire threat. So the pen came out, jobs were applied for, and one, establishing a non-traditional course portfolio, access programmes, returner programmes, women's second chance courses for Wirral College of Art and Design was one. In her own words, she was opening up opportunities for fantastic people with great potential in a town which at that time had 30% unemployment. And as the Art College merged into Wirral Metropolitan College, so Rhiannon took on more and more management responsibilities, including being the driver of some of the very first further and higher education partnerships, allowing local mature students to attain graduate status within their own community. The Edge Hill job, as Vice Principal responsible for student experience, was advertised, and Rhiannon didn't apply. 12 months later, it was advertised again, and this time she did. In her 15 years in the university, she transformed Edge Hill, developing our niche and our reputation while constantly remaining true to her values and her priorities. She was trusted, liked, and monumentally able and reliable. The Northwest Regional Contract for Aim Higher came to Edge Hill under her leadership, followed by the National Action on Access programme. Within the region, Edge Hill, or in truth Rhiannon, hosted the Lifelong Learning Network for Greater Merseyside and West Lancashire. But Rhiannon Evans was more than this. She was, and she is, a true and loyal friend and a champion of all of those less advantaged than us. She believes, as we believe, that education transforms lives, and she has consistently taken those beliefs into the world beyond academia. And so the circle is turned in full. The student of Welsh subjugation in British, for which we read English history, has the moral dilemma of having her achievements recognised by the Queen. She writes and she lectures of pioneering women, her mother, single and alone, travelling the globe, tending the injured and the ill, and she retains her passion as a champion of the arts and of the liberation that literature and culture brings to all of our lives. Pro-Chancellor, it is my enormous privilege to present Professor Rhiannon Evans, perhaps the founding sister of Edge Hill as a university, for the award of Doctor of the University, Honoris Causa. Before Rhiannon disappears, by the authority vested in me as the Vice-Chancellor of Edge Hill University, I hereby confer the award of Honorary Doctor of the University upon Professor Rhiannon Evans MBE. Congratulations.
Thank you to the Vice-Chancellor, to my dear friend John Cater for those words, those very kind words. I always feel that he has the novelist in him, the way he rounded my life in a way I didn't realise. I feel extremely honoured to be standing here in these splendid robes, the colours of the suffragettes, to receive an honorary doctorate from this university, where really I spent the most enjoyable and inspiring years of my working life. May I begin by congratulating you, my fellow graduates, here you all are, for your hard work and for your success that you've achieved, which enables you now to enter the teaching profession. This university has been at the forefront of the training of teachers for more than 130 years, and you will know that you are recognised as excellent by schools and local authorities up and down the country. A long time ago, I also graduated, as you heard, from the University of Sussex. On that stifling day 50 years ago, the Vice-Chancellor John Fulton, know the name? Yeah, father of, said many things, but I recall most clearly these words: "You are privileged young people. Only 4% of your generation will have the opportunity to go to university. Use it well." I was shocked by that figure, yet I already knew that in my 3 Formentary Girls' Grammar School, I'd sat alongside bright girls, smarter than I, who'd left school at 16, despite gaining a full clutch of O-levels. And probably only 20 of us remained in the upper 6 and went on to university. So my working life has been shaped by that realization that I was one of the privileged. Despite not coming from a privileged background, despite what you've heard, neither of my parents went to university, though they were extremely well read and so on, and would have wished to. Working with others, I've tried to create new educational ladders of opportunities for adults who missed out and for young people who are less privileged. And from the late 1990s, there was a kind of wind sailing with us. University schools and colleges have worked together with the funding councils and other organisations to develop and target initiatives such as Aim Higher to help all children of ability, whatever their background, to reach their potential and go to university. And while government policy was changeable, Edge Hill remained committed to social mobility and widening participation and was recognised as one of the top universities in the 2014 Social Mobility Graduate Index, amongst many other accolades and recognitions. Recent research has shown that of all the widening participation measures, mentorship is one of the most important ways of encouraging young people to aspire to and work towards university. Those of you graduating today will already know how important mentors have been in helping you develop your confidence and your skills, your professional skills. We've all had such mentors. My first one was Miss Morgan, sitting opposite me in the corridor, a child's desk between her and me as I was prepared for scholarship level English, and she would whisper to me the most sort of savoury parts of T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland, hoping that younger girls wouldn't hear as they crept past. Later, under John Cater's leadership and vision for this university, we were all inspired to have confidence in ourselves, and by finding what we individually could contribute best, work together to achieve the outstanding success for which Edge Hill is now recognised. So a different kind of mentorship later in life as it carries on. As teachers, you will of course go on and be mentors to pupils in your schools. And of course you will be formal mentors later to teachers who are training and to the next generation of teachers. Many of you will be senior and head teachers, and you will, through your leadership, transform the lives of young people and their communities. There are also individuals who started life as teachers, whose influence was such that they've opened up opportunities for generations to come. One such a person, as you've already heard, has links both to this university and to Sussex, where I was a student. In 1903, Helena Normanton, an orphan, came all the way from Brighton to Edge Hill and qualified as a teacher 2 years later. She then pursued against a great many obstacles, a successful and radical career path in the law, which opened up the route for the first time for women to follow. And it's interesting to reflect on the part Edge Hill may have played. We certainly know Helena was interested in suffragist ideas, as others were in Edge Hill at the time, ideas which were well advanced in Liverpool, where the college was located at the time. And the arrest and subsequent imprisonment of Christabel Pankhurst in 1905, when Helena was still a student in Manchester, Christabel was in Manchester, that would have inspired her and others and sent shockwaves Edge Hill must have been in her mind when Helena was commissioned in 1914 by the National Federation of Women Teachers. Yes, it's got a long history, hasn't it? To write a book about equal pay for women teachers. I'm sure that her deep commitment to issues of equality was nourished here at Edge Hill. Of course, equality's come a long way from the days of the fight for the vote. All professions are open to women. Equal pay has improved, though we hear reports, of course, which suggest it's nowhere near as good as it should be. And where in my day, in 1966, only 4% of young people attended university, the figure is now over 40%, 43% you could say. But there is still much work to be done. The 2016 Social Mobility and Child Poverty Report states that there is still a stark difference in the educational attainment between disadvantaged children and their peers, and that social mobility is still a question of class and privilege. So I hope that you, in your role as teachers, will find a way to take forward into your schools Edge Hill's legacy of transforming lives and creating opportunities. So good luck to all of you. Finally, I would like to congratulate the university on all its recent successes and wish it well for the future. They're too numerous, actually, for me to list in the 5 minutes I've been given. They are it is a phenomenally successful university. And one of the great privileges of being a Pro Vice-Chancellor is that you get to work with people across the university in many different roles and to see the huge commitment and extraordinary talent that there is here in this university. So I'd like to thank all my former colleagues and people I've worked with for their much valued advice and support over my years working at the university. And without that, I genuinely believe I could not have done my job. So I feel very proud and privileged to stand alongside all of you today, all of you graduates, and to accept this honorary degree which the university has so kindly bestowed upon me.